Alright, welcome back everybody. We have another session of Cooking with Lily and Generoso. So this week is actually going to be the Lunar New Year, and it starts on Thursday.
Year of the Goat!
It is the Year of the Goat. It is my year.
Goat.
And anybody else who is born in 12-year cycles based off of this year. So there are a bunch of different cakes that every, I think, Vietnamese and Chinese household makes or purchases during the New Year, and I'm going to be making what I believe is called Banh To. I'm just going to, for the sake of simplicity, I'll call it Vietnamese / Chinese steamed Lunar New Year cake. It's a cake that is made with sugar, and it's really, really delicious, and it's really bad for you. I should explain, one of the reasons why I never really quite understood how to pronounce it was that my grandmother was the one who used to always purchase it, and she spoke a mix of Vietnamese and Chinese. The Chinese pronunciation of this, I think, is Nian Gao, but again, we kind of had this weird mix of Vietnamese and Chinese, and generally, if you wanted to eat it, you kind of just picked up the pie pan over and you're like, can I have a slice? So I never really properly called it by its formal name. So let's look at the ingredients. This is actually a pretty simple dish. It's mostly cooking time that is going to take up all of your effort in this. But it's, again, it's cooking time, so it's passive. So first we have some sesame seeds. These are going to be the topping for the cake. Chinese versions, you'll see that they'll put like red gooseberries or jujubes on top. I've never really liked them in the first place, so I used to only get the ones with sesame seeds growing up. We have some oil. We have little pie pans. These are little mini loaf pans. Truthfully, what you'll often find in a store if you buy it in a bakery is that they're in circular pie pans, but I wanted to make smaller versions just so that they'd be a little faster to cook, because a full pie pan can take about 3 hours to steam, whereas these might take, you know, anywhere from an hour and a half to 2 hours, so a little bit shorter. And that's the reason why we have the smaller ones. Also, they're smaller because you can more easily share them too. So outside of that, we have one 16-ounce bag of glutinous rice flour, just sweet rice flour, but this is the Thai version. If you go to a Japanese or Korean market, they'll often have the Korean or the Japanese version, which is mochiko. This is the Thai rice flour, which is generally used within any of the Vietnamese recipes. And outside of that, this is Chinese brown sugar. Essentially, it's just water and sugar cooked together, and it's been preserved for about, I think it says on the label, something like 36 months. So it's been preserved for 3 years. So it has one of the most intense sugar flavors of all time, and that's what really makes this cake incredibly special. And outside of that, we have a big hunk of ginger. And you'll be seeing what we're going to do with that. Again, the Chinese version of this cake, as I had read, often uses almond extract, but then the Vietnamese versions actually often use ginger, and I recall the ginger flavor being the one that I had growing up. So outside of that, we have a hand mixer, and we have a knife, and we have some measuring cups, and a big mixing bowl. And outside of that, I should say, one of the reasons why you hear me saying like Vietnamese or Chinese, this cake actually, I believe, has origins from China, and just through kind of natural migration has made its way to Vietnam. And so the Vietnamese style has its own way, and the Chinese version has its own way as well. So sometimes you'll see this made with coconut milk. I'm going to make the one without coconut milk. This one is actually just flour, sugar, ginger, and water. So this is a really simple recipe, and again, most of it is going to involve steaming. So we're going to prep some of the ingredients, and we'll see. Okay everybody, there's really little prep done with this, so we're back. All I've done is I've cut the ginger into pieces. Again, just big chunks, that's fine, because what you're going to want to do is we're going to melt all of this Chinese brown sugar with some water, and we're going to put the ginger in it as well, and you just want the ginger flavor to be infused into the actual syrup mix.
Of the 2 packages of brown candy, you used a full package and then half of one stick, correct?
Yep, exactly, so that I could get approximately a pound, okay, basically. And outside of that, we also have measured out 2 cups of water.
Excellent.
So now we're actually going to dissolve the Chinese brown sugar. So on the stove, I'm going to put this on medium because actually you don't want this to ever boil whatsoever. You just want to be able to dissolve the sugar in the water and get the ginger flavors through. So I'm going to pour my 2 cups of water in here. And I'm going to put in my pieces of sugar.
You know, for our vegetarian and vegan watchers, this is vegan for the most part, isn't it?
Yeah, it's absolutely vegan.
Oh.
Alright. And so we're going to let this melt down, and it's probably going to take about like 10 minutes or so. When I start to see the pieces like breaking apart, at this point in time it doesn't really make sense to put in the ginger, so I'm going to wait until some of the sugar melts off first and then I'll put the ginger in. But I'll show you what that looks like in a little bit. Probably like 15 minutes. It took a little while for the dissolving to happen, but the brown sugar has dissolved entirely in the water. I've added in the chunks of ginger, and what I'm actually going to do now so that this liquid doesn't cook the rice flour too much, I'm going to take this off of heat, and you're going to want to let it cool for about 10 minutes until it's not like supremely hot. So what I'm going to do is actually move it off of the current stove because it's going to be too hot. And so in 10 minutes what I'm going to do is I'm going to fish out all those pieces of ginger, and then we're going to actually put the syrup and mix it in with the rice flour and then pour our batter and start steaming. So while we're waiting for the syrup to cool off, Jean has ever so kindly put the water on boil for our steamer. So you could use a bamboo steamer. We don't have one personally. It's mostly because we don't have a wok that's big enough for that. You actually often
we need a bigger
wok.
wok.
And also the cakes are kind of tall because the pans I'm using are tall. So this is actually perfect because we're using an American steamer right now. And so what you want to do is go ahead and get your water to boil. You want to make sure you have a tight lid on the steaming apparatus chamber. I think I like chamber.
Chamber sounds really po.
In the steaming chamber. If you don't have a tight lid, you can use a cutting board, or you can also use aluminum foil too. Just be very careful if you use aluminum foil because you might burn your hands. So just be very, very careful around it. So we're going to let the syrup cool off, and we'll see you in about 10. It's been about 15 minutes, and we've let the syrup cool off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fish out all of this ginger. Put it on a plate to the side. I probably wouldn't eat it if I were you, but if you have some inventive way something inventive to do with it, please feel free to. You could probably make candied ginger easily out of these pieces.
Oh, that's a great idea. If we let it dry? Yeah,
but probably if you let it dry out a little bit. Or if you're going to get incredibly deviant, deep fry it in some oil.
Jesus, that's pretty intense. The smell's beautiful right now. It has almost the kind of smell of a warm molasses.
Yeah. And so now we just have our syrup. I've poured out the entire container of rice flour. I'm going to pour the syrup on in.
That's pretty...
It's very dark.
Dark.
I'm going to scrape the bottom of the pans. Make sure that everything gets in there. Pour the rest out. Alrighty. And now we are going to take the stand mixer and just on low. You don't want it any higher than that.
Mm-hmm.
We're just going to mix all of the rice flour in. Until it doesn't, there are no more lumps. Splash a little bit, that's okay. That always happens, I think, to the best of us.
You use the entire package of glutinous flour, right?
Yep, the entire package of glutinous rice flour. That's 16 ounces, so it's a pound of rice flour. looking pretty good so far. What I'm going to do is just put my mixer to the side for just one moment. I'm going to add 2 tablespoons approximately of canola oil. This just makes sure that it doesn't stick too much.
And in case you folks didn't hear this when the blender was going on, so Lily put the entire 16-ounce packet of glutinous flour inside of that and blended all that up. So that bag that you saw at the beginning of the video went entirely into this.
And I'm going to take this opportunity while I'm paused to also take my spoon and scrape the sides of the pan, or the bowl I should say. That's long.
Very nice.
Alright. And we're going to come back in with the mixer on low again and just mix the oil in. Super easy recipe. Again, no concerns about it needs to be stirred one way or the other or anything like that. You just want to make sure that all the rice flour is cooked through or mixed through. Scrape the pan again and then mix for another about 2 minutes, and we'll see you back right when we're ready to pour in all of the mix. So everything is mixed all the way through. Oh, it's nice and the batter is nice and smooth, and it's very rich. And Jean even tasted it in its raw form. And what does it taste like to you, Jean?
It's like kind of, it's very intriguingly Asian and sweet. It does have a kind of an off quality because when you look at it, it does look like a thin milkshake.
Yeah.
But the reality is it tastes a little bit like molasses in a way, and molasses mixed with a little bit of cream.
It normally, I always think of it as almost like molasses mixed with a tiny bit of like Chinese 5-spice.
That seems about right.
So what we're going to do is we're just going to ladle this into our containers. So I'm probably going to put about a ladle and a half into each of these little pie pans.
Okay, cool. You think this is going to make about 5 or 6 cakes?
Probably. I think it's going to make probably about 6 cakes or so. We'll see. Keep in mind that the more you put into each pan, the longer it'll take to steam, so that's why I'm putting as much as I am into these, because I don't want to have to steam too much, especially because we don't have multiple steamers going. We only have one, so I'm going to have to rotate.
And each cake, you believe, will probably take about an hour and a half or so?
Probably about an hour and a half. That's my guess.
Now we're putting these in. I think we could fit maybe 2 or 3 in the bottom.
Yeah, I think we could fit 3 in. Full ladle? And a half. And so we'll keep on filling these. Actually, let me just fill one more, and then we can actually just put them into the steamer.
Great.
So 1 ladle and a half. Okay. And at this point in time, our steamer is a-steaming. What I'm gonna do is just gonna put these in here. Oh, maybe we were wrong. It looks like maybe we can only put 2 in. That's okay. Put 2 in here. And we will put the lid on it. And we will check on these in about an hour and a half and see how they're doing. Basically, you just want to steam them until they're firm to the touch. So it has been an hour. I have the timer on. There's about 1 minute left. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the lid off of the steamer. At this point, you can actually take a chopstick or a fork. You can actually get a sense of what the texture of the cake is. At this point, it's firmed up quite a bit.
It's rubbery, isn't it, Lily?
Yeah, it's rubbery. That's exactly what it should be. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take the steaming chamber out, just because I don't want to hurt myself when I'm putting the, when I'm actually putting the sesame seeds on. I'm going to We've taken the steaming chamber out. I'm going to very carefully lift this. I'm going to just grab a quick spoon and take my sesame seeds. Just put it across the top. Just try to spread it out as much as possible. Want to make sure that there's a nice and even coat on it. You can feel free to use your hands to spread it out. The cake will be hot, but not like too hot. Just do a little tiny bit more.
Okay.
Alright, and that's nice and spread, and I'm going to put it back into our steaming chamber. Get my other cake out.
And do the same thing.
Exactly. And then we're going to let this steam for about another, probably 30 minutes, and we'll check on the texture. By this point, again, it's already starting to firm up, but it still needs a little more cooking time. I'm just going to use my finger to spread out some of this. Alrighty. Nice layer of sesame. Put that back in. We still see that there's still some water in there, so that is a good thing. And then we put our lid back on. We'll set our timer for another 30 minutes. And we'll check back in and see how they're doing. And once that is done, we'll take those cakes out and then we'll rotate in all the other ones, because there are a ton of them still. So we'll see you soon. It's actually been 2 hours in total, so I think the last time we spoke we had just put in the sesame seeds, and that actually, since that moment, we've let the cake steam for another hour. So, we shall take the lid off. I'm going to take out the steaming chamber. And at this point, I'm going to take out our cakes. And the way that I've been keeping an eye on this is, especially since we have all the sesame seeds covering, in terms of testing the texture, I've been just sticking my chopstick down. What you want is, you want the cake to be a little bit gummy, but you want it overall to be solid. So these look nice and done. So the best thing to do with this is, I'm going to let this cool off. You can actually scrape off the edges and then serve them, or you could actually also fry them up in oil. So we'll actually show you when you fry it up in oil, because really you shouldn't fry the bento up in oil until everything's settled. So we want to let these guys cool off and kind of like solidify a little bit and get to room temperature. But in the meantime, while we're waiting for that, we have all of these other ones that still need to be steamed. So we're going to go ahead and steam that. So we'll see you soon, and I'll show you how to fry up the bento, and it will be very delicious. So we've actually put the bento in the freezer and let it cool off and get solid for a while. And if you'll notice, you can just rip it right out of the pan. You cut the edges out and you can just pull everything right out of the pan.
Very rubbery in texture.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut these into little bits. Almost like sesame candy. And now we're going to put some oil into a pan. This is how I grew up eating it. Some parts of China you'll put egg on it. I just grew up eating it fried in some oil. You want to pretty generously coat the bottom. The stuff is pretty sticky. We're just going to fry up the pieces of bento. So what is it? So we already tasted it right after it cooked. It tastes exactly like the way I remember it as a kid. Jean, how does it taste to you as someone who didn't grow up with this?
I mean, it's completely different from anything I've ever eaten in kind of a Western kitchen. The flavor is really nice. It is not overly sweet. Again, it has the molasses kind of smokiness to it, I guess is the word, but it's not overly sweet. It's very, very gelatinous is the word. Very firm. I wouldn't have believed the cake would have come out that way, to tell you the truth.
And so what you want to do is you want to just fry up each piece until it gets nice and crisp around each edge. Kind of moving them as you go because it'll tend to want to stick a little bit.
Wow, this is really bad for you.
It is really, really bad for you.
But it's delicious, right?
It really is. It's one of my favorite things about New Year. I grew up loving this cake, and normally you can only actually buy it at bakeries around New Year, so I would wait every single year for it, and then I would gorge on it for probably weeks, and then I wait for the next year until I can have it again. So I'm going to just tilt it to the side, and at this point you can actually see the nice caramelization that is happening. Your cake is going to get a little soft, that's okay, so you just have to be a little careful when you're doing the turn. It's going to get a little sticky, that's okay. I feel like once you cut it out of the container, it doesn't need to look pretty anymore. I remember my grandma occasionally served this and it was always like a little bit sticky and a little bit of a mess, but it's always delicious. If you notice, we have a little bit of the caramelized part. Just gonna eat it. And frying it really kind of makes it extra special, I think.
It just needs a little fry on each side. You're not killing it. Yeah.
What it'll do is it makes the outside super crispy, and then you have the inside as kind of like this sticky, delicious mess a little bit, and it's really something that is a really nice treat, especially around Lunar New Year, and especially here in Boston where it's really, really cold.
You serve this hot?
Yes, absolutely. The most delicious one I've ever had. So again, you just want to make sure that each side has a little bit of a coating. What I'm going to do, if you notice, often when I serve anything with sesame seeds, I'll roast the sesame seeds. Because we're doing this fry afterwards, I didn't roast the sesame seeds because I'm going to actually fry these with the sesame side down. Just a moment. You'll notice that it takes almost no time for these pieces to fry up. Probably within about 15 seconds they start to be ready. Turn off the heat. Give it just like a few more seconds. Get our plate. It's going to be a little sticky, that's okay.
The roasted sesame smell on top of it's really, really heavenly.
Yeah, and it adds a really nice touch to the bento. Alright. And so that is fried bento. Enjoy and Happy New Year, everyone.